Hello and welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution. Shut this down. Hold on. I had to shut that down. Sorry about that. I put an overlay for here for a second. I get over here and put the downloads and go in here to. Sorry, I just want to try to put her overlay in there. I forgot to do that a few minutes ago. Please forgive me. This girl, she really suffered. Predators, I think it's what I got it. No, missing, because she was a missing girl for a little while. Missing and found deceased. Jonelle Matthews. So I'm going to share that overlay with you. Yeah, I remember years ago, she was on a milk carton for missing kids. And she was missing from Greenlee, Colorado. Tell you more about the story in a few minutes. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is the use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Make sure anyone knows that take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones, for I say unto you that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. I'll go ahead and put the trigger warning scrolling across the screen there. Hi there, Eric. Hello, Bucket List. Good to see you. Chris, I hope you're still here too. I'm so proud of you. Everybody gets angry at these things, so it's okay to be angry. So, first of all, before I go into the main news story, I'm going to have to mute my mic. I'm going to play a commercial, a YouTube thing on the milk carton where she was actually on many years ago. Hey, Jackie, good to see you. Thanks for coming. So, let me change my settings right quick.
In the months after Jonelle's kidnapping, investigators asked people across the country to be on the lookout for her. Today, we'd send an Amber Alert or, post online. In the 80s, the National Child Safety Council started using milk cartons to raise awareness. Jonelle's was one of the first faces to be printed on milk cartons and sent to homes across the country.
By being able to put them on the milk cartons fast, we could get the word out nationwide.
Barbara Huggett designed the poster that appeared on cartons. President Ronald Reagan even mentioned Jonelle's name in a meeting after her case got national attention.
It's so easy to become a podcast.
Y'all can hear me okay? Thank you so much for coming, Sheila. I see that you're on Facebook listening and watching. Thank you so much. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up here at YouTube, everybody that's here. I really do appreciate it. It really helps it, the algorithms get better and the story get out there even more. And people at Facebook, please go ahead and reshare it as well. Appreciate it. Love a bunch of y'all. So, Jonelle, Let me start. Let me share my page. Well, you got the page still saying okay. This is from the Colorado. Okay, that went away from there, so that's okay. We don't have to go with that. There are missing children, and then there's 8 Colorado kids who vanished without a trace. And it first had her thing in there, and they had alternative suspect here before him. Let's see. Here we go. So here's the full. Here's the story here. Sorry about that. So there's court documents and all that's right there. Pankey story. Y'all would not believe it. Sorry, I had scrolled down reading a lot of that earlier. The timeline: the Jonelle Matthews murder. In October 2021, a year after former Idaho gubernatorial candidate Stephen Pankey was arrested for the kidnapping and murder of 12-year-old Jonelle Matthews, who went on trial. There she is right here, this precious 12-year-old. Disappeared from her Greenlee, Colorado home on December the 20th, 1984. This was the Matthews home. Investigators searched the Matthews home, but the only physical evidence they found were shoe prints in the snow, and someone tried to eliminate with a garden rake. The rake came right out of my garage, Jim Matthews said, told 48 Hours. So the culprit actually went and got the rake out, swept the snow to cover up traces of his footsteps. But I wonder, because it still had to have some kind of marks in different areas around, at the bottom of the down here. Not unless he continued to keep the rake with him. It makes you wonder. So here's the investigation. As investigators struggle to find answers, they focus initially on Jonelle's father, Jim Matthews. Jim Matthews was eventually cleared. The Stone Cold case. Despite decades of ongoing police work and public interest, Jonelle's case remained cold until a man living in Twin Falls, Idaho, Stephen Pankey, became a person of interest. Okay, we'll go over this. Who is Stephen Pankey? But this one over here has got more information. So let's go over there. Everything to know about Steve Pankey, the former Idaho gubernatorial candidate convicted of killing Jonelle Matthews. Before gubernatorial candidate Steve Pankey was linked to the brutal murder of 12-year-old Jonelle Matthews, he displayed odd behavior and inserted himself into the investigation. This was updated August the 25th of this year. Thank you so much, Jackie Glenn. Sis. Over the course of his life, Steve Pankey has been defined by many labels: a husband, a father, used car salesman, failed gubernatorial candidate, and most recently convicted killer. In 2022, he was found guilty of kidnapping and killing 12-year-old Jonelle Matthews decades earlier. The heartbreaking case is the focus of Oxygen's two-part special, The Girl on the Milk Carton, premiered Sunday, August the 25th. So y'all can look up that movie, okay? Y'all can probably still find it on there. The Girl on the Milk Carton, okay? Jonelle disappeared from her Colorado home on December the 20th, 1984, after coming home from a Christmas concert that she'd performed in her school choir. It would take years before Pankey, who lived nearby with his family at the time of the abduction, would be linked to the crime. After decades without any answers, Jonelle's body was discovered in a field by oil workers in 2019, bringing the case back into the spotlight and leading to Pankey's arrest the next year. The people that dropped her off waited until she got inside and she was to flash a light when she made it safely inside. So I guess she had done that. So it makes me wonder whether or not he was waiting inside. You know what I'm saying? So just who is the man who took Jonelle's life? Here even though it said he would, none of his DNA, Stephen Pankey in December 1984. Who is Steve Pankey? Pankey was a married father living in Greeley, Colorado at the time, okay? And he was arrested, when he was arrested, he was living in Idaho, in a home about 2 miles from the Matthews residence, according to an indictment in the case obtained by Oxygen. His now ex-wife, Angela Hicks, testified in court that Pankey was extremely controlling and didn't allow her to drive or listen to the radio or TV during most of their marriage, according to Colorado NBC affiliate KUSA. Pankey found work over the years as a security guard and used car salesman. He was also no stranger to run-ins with law enforcement. Just one day before Jonelle disappeared, according to a report from CBS News, he had been arrested for making a scene at a bank, and he had other unusual run-ins with authorities over the years. Stephen Pankey runs for governor of Idaho. 3 years after Jonelle disappeared, Pankey moved with his family to Idaho, according to the Idaho Statesman. There he tried to become governor and two failed bids for the state's highest office, once in 2014 and again in 2018. And I'm so glad he did not make it. Who in here is glad he did not make it as the governor? Besides me, please put a one up there. So, Pankey's political campaign poster from his 2018 run described him as a Republican candidate with traditional core values with a biblical and constitutional perspective. He also vowed on the campaign poster to protect Second Amendment rights, and he promised not to take donations from lobbyists. I intend to keep simple issues simple and bring together competent people to resolve Idaho's complex issues, reads a quote from him on the poster. But his message failed to resonate with others. Pankey earned just 1.4% of the votes in the state's Republican primary in 2018, knocking him out of the contention before the general election, according to election results reported by the New York Times. Here is the precious girl, y'all. Look at how beautiful she is. How Steve Pankey emerged as a suspect in Jonelle Matthews' disappearance. Although no DNA evidence has ever linked him to the case, Pankey initially became a suspect in Jonelle's murder largely because of his odd behavior and the fact that he continually inserted himself into the investigation. Put in mind, he did not want to hear news reports before, right? You remember the case? I'm sorry, Bucket. It is so sad, ain't it? According to an affidavit, Pankey, Pankey, who briefly attended the same church as the Matthews family, do what? Had a habit of watching children walk home from the middle school where Jonelle was a student. Well, I used to have a habit watching the kids, but mine was to make sure that nobody was messing with the kid, okay? Authorities say Pankey also knew of and had discussed a crucial piece of evidence that had never been released to the media, specifically that a rake was used to obliterate shoe impressions in the snow outside the Matthews home the night of the abduction. He also owned a gun at the time of the kidnapping. Jonelle died from a gunshot wound to the head, but by the time the body was discovered, authorities were unable to recover any usable DNA from the body. Excuse me. Though Hicks would also testify in court about Pankey's strange behavior around the time Jonelle disappeared. She said that one day, after Jonelle disappeared, Pankey announced that the family would be taking a trip to California to visit his parents, who had invited them for Christmas, even though he had already decided earlier not to go, according to KUSA. Hicks was concerned about the family's two Great Danes, but Pankey told her he had dumped the dogs and they were never seen again. Did he end up killing his dogs, dump them out somewhere, or what did he do? So we'll go back over here. I'm sorry. Pankey suddenly cut the trip short after having an argument with his father, and the family drove back to Colorado on Christmas Day. According to Hicks, during the drive, Pankey asked to turn on the radio, even though she typically wasn't allowed to listen to the radio. In my flipping around, I came to a portion of a news report that indicated that a girl had gone missing from Greeley, Colorado, and he wanted to hear that, she testified. And then he wanted me to keep flipping the channels to see if he could hear anything more about that. Hicks also said in her testimony that once they made it back to Greeley, they stopped at a store and he bought multiple newspapers. She added that Pankey asked her to read him the articles related to Jonelle's disappearance. I recall him having me read each one at least 3 times, she said to the court. How strange is that, y'all? Here she is, beautiful little girl. Hicks said that about a month after Jonelle disappeared, the pastor at their church said he heard a message from God that the girl would be found alive and that Pankey yelled, "False prophet!" and had to be taken out of the church. Wow. If that's not a guilty thing, he knew that the little girl wasn't alive anymore, right? So he hollered out, "False prophet!" Pankey made other odd comments about the case over the years. Once telling his wife he believed he was being persecuted by police because he wouldn't tell them what he knew about Jonelle. Pankey also brought up Jonelle during his son's funeral in 2008, Hicks says. Now it makes you wonder what happened with his son's death. It's the only time I ever saw that much emotion from him, she testified, according to KUSA. Very choked up, he bent and he kissed the urn. And he said, "I hope God didn't allow this to happen because of Jonelle Matthews." Wow. 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 I'm sorry, I didn't read through this from that. Oh, that caught me off guard. I hope God didn't allow this to happen because of Jonelle Matthews. Wow, if that's not guilt, I don't know what is, right? Authorities say Pankey also made direct and veiled statements about Jonelle in civil and criminal court documents over the years, once writing in a 1999 Idaho Supreme Court filing that without a deal, this case would never be solved, according to an affidavit. Say what? Oh, give a deal and then it's going to be solved. Oh, wow. You're going to die in court now. You're going to die in jail now. You're 70 something years old. Wow, wow, wow. This is just amazing me. Here he is right here. Evidently, he's a wife abuser as well, so the way he treated his wife. Steve Pankey is arrested. Pankey was arrested in 2020. His first trial in 2021 ended with a hung jury. But he was found guilty the next year of second-degree kidnapping with the use of a deadly weapon, felony, murder, and false reporting to authorities, according to the Colorado. Jonelle's father, Jim Matthews, urged Pankey to confess during his sentence hearing, telling him, "The gates of heaven can still be open for you. It's not too late, Steve Pankey. God is waiting." But Pankey, whose attorney described him as a true crime junkie who just likes to be in the limelight, continued to profess his innocence in his own remarks to the court. "I am a Christian. I will be in heaven. I am innocent, and this is not justice for Jonelle," he said. Where is Steve Pankey today? Pankey, who was convicted in 2022 of kidnapping and killing 12-year-old Jonelle, was handed a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 20 years, so that the 73-year-old is currently serving his time at the Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility in Ordway, Colorado. He'll be eligible for parole in 2040, according to the Colorado Department of Corrections. Okay, here is where her refined grave is. This is her thing. That's her gravestone over here. Jonelle Renee Matthews, 1972 through 1984. There's other help asked and search efforts. She was born in California, and she died in Greeley-Well County, Colorado. And it's right here. Stephen Pankey was found guilty of Jonelle's murder. That's 2022, and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years served. So we're going to go on down there. It says Stephen Pankey, a formerly Greeley resident who now lives in Idaho, has been indicted on charges of first-degree murder and kidnapping and death. And then in 2021 update, her biological mother was Terry Vieira Martinez. She was born at Cottage Hospital in Santa Barbara, California. She was given up for adoption at 6 weeks old in March of 72. She was adopted by James and Gloria Matthews. In 2019 update, Jonelle was found and laid to rest. Human bones discovered by workers in Weld County this week are those of Jonelle Matthews, a 12-year-old girl that vanished from the West Greeley home on December the 20th, 1984, in a baffling missing person case that drew national attention. Over the years, investigators have pursued hundreds of leads in a cold case that is familiar to longtime Greeley area residents. President Ronald Reagan mentioned Jonelle's disappearance. Her parents, Jim and Gloria, appeared on national television pleading for help, and thousands of reward posters of the girl were produced and distributed. Jonelle was last seen 34 years ago when she was dropped off at the home at 8:30 p.m. by a friend and friend's father. She had performed with seventh grade classmates at a middle school choir concert before her disappearance. The inscription on her gravestone says, "Beloved." She deserves that. Yes, you do. You deserve, beloved. I'm sorry that happened to you, sweet child. So it gets me right here. This is where you actually get to see him in the court right here. During his trial last year, which ended in a mistrial, on Monday a jury found him guilty of murder and kidnapping. So it's like, would y'all see this other part where it said we seen who he was? This is his history with the police, where it's been there's other different. It's not letting me download it or whatever. Whenever I tried, that's just a picture from the Greeley Tribune. Law enforcement records describe unrelated run-ins with Steve Pankey had with Greeley police. They include minor and nonviolent allegations, like accusations of creating a nuisance and harassment at a local bank. Pankey's former defense attorney, Anthony Viers, told 48 Hours about the bank incident. He argued with the bank teller and the police were called, and that's the kind of thing that's happened to Mr. Pankey over the years. He's had periodic sorts of spats with people because he is an irascible, prickly guy. Now here comes Pankey's story. Stephen Pankey told KBTV News he remembers where he was the night Jonelle Matthews disappeared. I was home with my then wife and my 5-year-old son. The home where Pankey lived with his family at the time of Jonelle's disappearance pictured was 2 miles from her home. And I'm wondering, could he been out walking the dogs also? The serial candidate. A few years after Jonelle Matthews disappeared, Stephen Pankey and his family moved around to different states before settling in Idaho. There he found an interest in politics. He ran for sheriff 3 times, municipal court, lieutenant governor, and even governor twice. He was never elected. Now, there's court documents, Court of Appeals. While living in Idaho, Pankey continued to have brushes with the law. In a few court filings, he brought up Jonelle's case, such as this 1999 filing when he told the Idaho Supreme Court that his conviction for causing a scene in a bank was in part an attempt to force him to become an informant in Jonelle's disappearance. Really? Really? He also wrote that he feared he might get the death penalty for revealing the location of Mrs. Matthews' body. How would you know where her body was unless you did it, right, y'all? How would you know? Pankey's home searched. On September the 4th, 2019, just over a month after Jonelle Matthews' remains were found, authorities searched Stephen Pankey's home in Twin Falls, Idaho. They got full SWAT gear on, Pankey said in an interview with CBS affiliate KMTV, and said, they took my laptop, cell phones, they took a bunch of pics. And here's where the indictment is. Stephen Dana Pankey. The district attorney was Michael J. Rourke in Greeley, Colorado. Count 1, murder in the first degree after deliberation. Count 2, murder in the first degree felony murder. Count 3, second degree kidnapping. Count 4, crime of violence. Count 5, crime of violence. A year after authorities searched Steve Pankey's home, a grand jury handed down an 8-page indictment against Pankey on October the 9th, 2020. They charged he took Jonelle Matthews from her family home and shot her during the course of kidnapping. It makes me wonder whether she was essayed, but she was buried for so many years, so there would not be any evidence of she was a damage, shown, any evidence shown because the DNA was already lost. To the rape shoe prints, the indictment also mentions that Pankey knew of and discussed the rape used to obliterate foot impressions in the snow at the Matthews home, which law enforcement withheld from the public. Pankey's former defense attorney, Anthony Vorse, told 48 Hours that Pankey's knowledge of the rape is arguably the one piece of evidence that arguably ties Mr. Pankey to the crime. The viewers went on to say that Pankey only knew about the rape because it was divulged to him by law enforcement. There's in a matter of 3 days, on October 12th, 2020, police arrested Pankey for kidnapping and first-degree murder in Jonelle's case. Pankey pled not guilty for these crimes, but it's got pleaded, pled. Pankey's then defense attorney, Anthony Viers, told 48 Hours there's no indication that he committed this murder, no indication that he had anything to do with burying the body. Mr. Pankey wanted to be a person of interest. Mr. Pankey loves the limelight. All the statements that he has made about his culpability had been, I didn't do it. Yeah, but how did you know where her body was buried? How did you know about the rape incident? You tell me. Riddle me that, Batman. On October the 13th, 2021, Steve Pankey's trial started. Prosecutors told jurors that Pankey had made incriminating statements over the years about Jonelle's case. The evidence in this case will prove that the defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree and second degree kidnapping. The mayor. Greeley, Colorado Mayor John Gates testified about learning that Stephen Pankey had once named him a person of interest in the disappearance of Jonelle Matthews. Mayor John Gates, he was being blamed at first too. Had a call from a journalist in Idaho that told me that I've been named as a person of interest in a case by Mr. Pankey, and I think my jaw probably hit my desk, and I said, "What?" Gates told 48 Hours. Here's where Pankey's ex-wife, hey, hey Sheila, yeah, Sheila's at Facebook, so you might not be able to see her comments on here. I can't see it right now until I get back at StreamYard. One of the star witnesses in this case, Stephen Pankey's ex-wife, Angela Hicks, testified about what she says she witnessed while married to Pankey. She described being forced to listen to news accounts about Jonelle's disappearance, and she told jurors about finding a piece of paper in Pankey's trash. And when one of those things notated in their handwriting on this piece of legal paper was snow outside the Matthews house was raked, she told jurors. Wow. And here's the alternative suspect right here. Pankey's defense offered a different theory, according to attorney Anthony Biarst. The person who killed Jonelle was someone she knew. He says Doris Drake, but she also knew Mr. Pankey, right? They went to church together. Duh. He says Doris Drake, whose mother lived across the street from Jonelle, is a killer. He knew that Drake had been at his mother's house at night, but was missing for a number of hours the same night. Law enforcement questioned Drake, but they said they did not pursue him further because his family provided an alibi for him. Norris Drake, ladies and gentlemen, knew that the footprints were raked. The others told jurors Norris Drake murdered Jonelle Matthews. But how did Pankey know? Okay? How did Pankey know where the body was? Excuse me. It's more damning evidence against Pankey. After hearing testimony from multiple witnesses, Stephen Pankey took the stand. He testified that in the past he had lied about his knowledge of the case. The truth is, I made up a lot of stuff out of bitterness, he said. It was just me trying to be a big man in the case, okay? I had no knowledge. The verdict. On November the 2nd, 2021, jurors got the case. 2 days later, they had reached a verdict. The jury found him guilty of making false reports to authorities, but they were deadlocked on the other kidnapping and murder counts. The judge declared a mistrial on those counts. I realize the jury was unable to reach a verdict on the other counts, and that is perfectly acceptable. Wait for a trial to conclude, Judge Timothy Kearns told the court. So then there was a new trial. The retrial of Stephen Pankey was scheduled for October the 4th, 2024. And we got to see that he was guilty as charged. Um, and I want to go ahead and remember these 8 people, and I may need to do a story on them as well. Eventually, these are 8 that are missing children, 8 Colorado kids who vanished without a trace. That was published in 2019. Bring their pictures up. This is a 14-year-old boy, I guess. No, there was a 19-year-old. The other one says 14-year-old Beth Miller, a lively 14-year-old who didn't know a stranger, set off from her Idaho Springs home on a jog one August day in '83. She never came back. With the recent discovery of 12-year-old Jonelle Matthews remains 34 years after she went missing from Greeley home, we took a look at years-old missing children cases that have puzzled Colorado authorities. Well, Miller was in Idaho when he's living in Idaho. I hope he didn't end up, and if he did, I hope the family gets answers, right, y'all? There are 59 missing juveniles listed in the Colorado Bureau of Investigation's Cold Case Database, according to CBI. Here are 8 of those children who vanished seemingly without a trace in Colorado. Here's Chris Vigil. The 9-year-old boy from LaPorte was last seen on a Sunday afternoon hike with his mom, Marion, and a younger brother, Eric, in northern Colorado, Potrero Canyon. The three set off together on the Gray Rock Mountain Trail on April the 30th of 78, but Chris ended up hiking ahead and disappearing. Despite one of the most expensive searches in Laramie County history, Chris has never been found. And it said, if you have any information about the disappearance or whereabouts of Chris, contact the Laramie County Sheriff's Office at 970-416-1985. Again, it's 970-416-1985. Here is Marie Blee, missing since November 22nd, 1979. On November 22nd, 1979, after attending a 4-H club dance in Craig, 15-year-old Marie Blee went to a party at a nearby Shadow Mountain Village mobile home park with a friend, according to the Charlie Project. Blee left the party with an unidentified driver who had agreed to take her back to her home 15 miles away in Hayden. She was never seen again. If you have any information on Blee's disappearance, contact the Root County Sheriff's Office at 970-879-1090. Here's Roger Ellison, missing since February the 10th, 1981. It's been almost 40 years since 17-year-old Roger Ellison, a popular A student with seemingly no reason to disappear, vanished from his Western Slope High School. Ellison was last seen getting his books from his school locker in the small Delta County town of Cedar Ridge. He never made it to his next class and never came home that day, according to the Denver Post. Despite posters being distributed and his family offered an $8,000 reward for information, Ellison has never been found. For months after Roger's disappearance, his father Ernest reportedly stood at a car waiting for the school bus that once dropped off his son. He would scan the students getting off, hang his head, and cry when he didn't see Roger, according to the Post. Ernest died of a heart attack the spring after Roger's disappearance. If you have any information on Roger's disappearance, contact the Delta County Sheriff's Office at 970-874-2000. Hey, Bucket, that's all right. Thanks for coming. The Victoria Sanchez and Yvonne Mestis. Victoria Sanchez and Yvonne Mestis. Look at the pictures where I read further down. Both 15 and students at Rocky Ford High School were last seen at the school on November the 1st, 1982. Their disappearance has stretched on decades. But new information in the case led the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and Rocky Ford Police to reopen the case in 2017. It currently remains unsolved. If you have any information on Yvonne or Victoria's disappearance, contact the Rocky Ford Police Department at 719-254-3345. Again, it's 719-254-3345. And here's Beth Miller, missing since August the 16th, 1983. She went for a morning jog in her hometown of Idaho Springs. She never came home and hasn't been seen since. For information on Beth's disappearance, contact the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, provided by 9 News. On August the 16th, 1983, 14-year-old Beth Miller went for a morning jog in her hometown of Idaho Springs, just west of Denver. She never came home and hasn't been seen since. Witnesses claim to have seen Miller talking to a man in a red pickup truck, but the alleged truck was never found by law enforcement, according to 9 News. If you have information on Beth's disappearance, contact the Colorado Bureau of Investigation 303-239-4221. And so they actually got unsolved the disappearance of Beth Millard. So there's a link to go to if you come to this Colorado.com, the story. Number 7 is Christopher Harvey, missing since July the 11th, 1984. After visiting a friend in the Hinsdale County Mobile Home Park where his family spent their summers, 14-year-old Christopher Harvey set off to walk his dog. Though the dog returned, Christopher never did. The teen's disappearance was further muddled when a badly beaten boy around the same age was incorrectly identified as Christopher 6 weeks later. Was chronicled in a newspaper November 1984 story in the New York Times. If you have any information on his disappearance, contact the Hinsdale County Sheriff's Office at 970-944-2291. There's Christopher Avieto, missing since July the 15th, 1986. He was 7 months old when he disappeared from his crib in the family's Colorado Springs home on July the 15th, 1986. The image on the right is an age progressed to 32 years. If you have information, contact the Colorado Springs Police Department. Christopher Avieto was just 7 months old when he vanished from his crib at the foot of his parents' bed in Colorado Springs. Though more than 30 years have passed, and the Avieto family has actively searched for Christopher ever since. Before her death of cancer in 2017, Christopher's mother Bernice traveled across the country chasing down tips about his whereabouts. Last year, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an updated, age-progressed rendering of what Christopher could look like today. Oh boy, this is never easy to get this story out there. It's never easy. I want to thank everybody for coming in. This is a sad story on this Jonelle Matthews. It's sad. All these other kids. I hope and pray that somebody spots some of these still alive. I pray that some of these are still alive. All of these that's missing. I would hope that they all will be found alive. I would pray. But we know the odds, which is sad. So thank you, everybody, and God bless. And be sure to get the word out. Remember to keep these families in your thoughts and in your prayers. God bless each and every one of y'all. Have a great day. Do something special for someone and something special for yourself, too. Thank you. God bless.